Hello and welcome to the Waynesburg Effect, our only political talk show on WCTV. The topics that our panel will be diving into today are the legacy that the late John McCain left and what the Senate is doing to replace him. We will also discuss former President Barack Obama being back on the campaign trail on behalf of Democratic candidates. Democrats think his presence is a boost, but is that actually true? And finally, we will dive into Brett Kavanaugh's 4-day confirmation hearings and the controversy that took place. I'm Emily Bennett, and I'm joined on the desk by Andrew Rhea, Dakota Kiefer, and Michael Capelli. Don't go anywhere. You're watching The Waynesburg Effect. It's time to dive into our first topic of the day. Senator John McCain passed away a few weeks ago, but his legacy remains. Dakota, what really stands out to you in John McCain's legacy?
He was a man, he lived an absolutely incredible life, one that any American would be proud to live. He was an American hero. He spent 5.5 years being brutally tortured by the North Vietnamese in Vietnam. And I think this furthered his legacy moving forward because it made him one of the strongest voices against torture in the United States. And he had the credibility and moral authority on the subject because obviously he lived through 5.5 years of torture. And he claimed that torture was not an effective strategy to try and get people to talk. He knows how he dealt with it. He knows how other people would probably deal with it. And it's a very strong point for him to make considering he was a Republican. And as a Republican, most Republicans, as a general consensus, are for torture. They think it's an effective strategy to get people to talk, possibly terrorists to leak information, and he was very much against that. He did not think it was effective at all, and obviously it's hard to argue with him on that. We have not experienced that. Not many people have experienced what he experienced, and he was also a man, he wasn't afraid to speak his mind, and that was especially evident with President Trump. He had major disagreements with President Trump, and he made it known, and him and Trump did not get along very well. And, he wasn't afraid to go at his party, which is something that I respect on any side. If you're not afraid to battle with your party and say, well, I disagree with you on this, I disagree with you on that, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, that's a great thing because it shows that you're not one-sided and I have to stick by my views because I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat. So I think that's great. One of my favorite stories about John McCain is from the 2008 election. He handed a lady the microphone at a public meeting, and she tried to claim Obama wasn't an American, and he just took the mic off of her and was like, no, we won't do that here. And that's just the kind of man that McCain was. He was very respectful. He ran a respectful election when it came between him and Obama, and he was just an all-around great American.
Kind of bouncing off that, you mentioned that he wasn't afraid to go at his party, which is incredibly true. And at his funeral, his daughter spoke to some of the things that he stood for and some of the things that he wanted to push across. And a lot of Trump supporters just weren't about that. And she basically said, point A, point B, point C, this is what my dad stood for. And I think a lot of the Trump supporters, and even Trump himself, try to take the focus off of that. And I don't think that was something that they honestly should have done. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, when I think of John McCain, one word comes to mind, and that's servant. He served his entire life, to this nation, and he never gave in on what he believed in, which to me is just outstanding in a career of politics, that he can, keep his morals and his values. He didn't subscribe to party loyalty, which is, just another oddity these days. And you saw this even towards the end of his career, where he voted against the GOP's health care bill because obviously it was lazy and sort of thrown together. He didn't vote on it. He didn't vote for it just because they wanted to pass it. So I think towards the end of his career, I think that the whole mess with President Trump really put like a damper almost.
Yeah.
It took away from a focus on his life, and unfortunately, I think that the only reason that he got his death has been so celebrated in the media, especially by the left, is because of his battles with President Trump. The left media, when he ran in 2008 against Obama, was very critical of him. You didn't hear the things that you've heard recently about John McCain back when he was running for president. So while I do believe he does deserve every ounce of respect he's gotten, I think we have to be careful and make sure that it's for the right reasons. It's because this man led a life of service.
Yeah,
and served his country.
And now with his death, there's an open seat in the Senate now, and Governor Doug Ducey of Arizona nominated former Senator John Kyle to that seat. So what do you think about him?
Honestly, I don't know much about him. I do know that Arizona is, what happens with McCain's seat is very important, not only to Arizona, but to the makeup of Congress as a whole. It would be sad to see someone in his place that doesn't make up with his values, that doesn't stand for what he believed in and stand up for their morals and values. So I think whoever ends up in his spot needs to be able to defend their values and stay strong, because ultimately that's what John McCain would have done had he been able to continue.
Yeah, and I think for the time being, Kyle is a good replacement for the time being. Now, the question is, will he leave after January when Congress returns, or will he stay until 2020? And that's the big question. But as the time being, while he's replacing him for even just a couple years, I think Trump supporters and McCain supporters alike can get behind him. He's served 3 terms in the Senate. He was also in charge of shepherding Brett Kavanaugh through the Senate as well. So that's something that I know Trump supporters can get behind, as we are going to talk about later, the Brett Kavanaugh hearings and everything of that. But he, I think, is a man who has values as well. When he left office in 2013 originally, he was a second-ranking Senate Republican. So I think he is a good man for the job. It's only temporary, as there's going to be a special election for McCain's Senate seat in 2020. Don't know if he'll hold it until then or if he'll leave after January. That remains to be seen, but I think it was a good move for the current time.
And what this does do is, since he's only committed to staying in until January, is that it could open up a spot for Democrats to possibly take control in the Senate.
And also something, now I said that Trump supporters may like him. He's also been slightly critical of President Trump. He called his style boorish, and he also claimed that Trump can be his own worst enemy. But I still think he can be very popular with Republicans. Obviously, McCain a Republican as well, but leaned a little bit more on the lefter side for Republicans. But I think he can be popular on both sides of the spectrum.
One thing I do kind of take issue with is that from what I've read, he's been kind of directing Brett Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court appointee, through the Senate and kind of showing him the ropes. And I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because of my feelings on Kavanaugh, but we can get into Kavanaugh later.
Yeah.
For sure, but that's one thing about John Kyle. He's been praised so much by McCain's family, which it's very appropriate for the situation, that he came into this seat. And I remember McCain's mom really speaking highly of him. He was really close to McCain's family. So it's nice to see that with kind of continuing John McCain's legacy. But when we come back to the Waynesburg Effect, we'll be looking at Obama being back on the campaign trail. Don't go anywhere.
Rough day, huh? Hey, rough day, huh? Maybe this will make you feel better. I made some apple fritters. Welcome home.
Thank you. I really needed this today.
I didn't realize what a fine line it is between social drinking and a problem. I hadn't even noticed what was happening, and then he was gone. Hi, honey. He's gone.
Welcome back to the Waynesburg Effect. Now, former President Barack Obama is back on the campaign trail for the Democrats. They're hoping this is going to boost their votes, but is that really the case?
I really don't think so, Emily. I mean, when you look at the Obama effect on the Hillary Clinton campaign, it didn't really help that much. And when you're looking at the midterms as the Democrats, you want to look to where you had the most success. Look at Connor Lamb. Connor Lamb ran as a center-left Democrat in a district where Trump won by, I believe, like 20 points. It was a 20-point swing for Lamb's win. That, to me, should be the approach they should be taking. the center-left approach. Now, I know, different people have different ideas of where President Obama was on the political spectrum. I just don't think it's in the best interest of the Democratic Party to have a former president be out campaigning for they should be pushing their younger, members almost.
That's a good point you made about a former president coming out, going on to the campaign trail. It's very unusual, and it's something that really doesn't typically happen. And Obama himself even admitted that, but I think he feels it's his duty. Obviously, he disagrees with Trump on just about everything, and he feels like it's his duty to get out there and help his party thrive in the upcoming elections. Now, will it help? I think it can be good for Democrats. The only reason I feel that way is that Democrats need to get out and vote. And I think Obama is he's one of the most popular Democrats in the United States today, and he's not president anymore. But I think he's someone that, they see him on TV and they'll be like, well, if he's for them, maybe I should get out and vote because I liked him. And he's someone that I think can draw national television, national ratings to him, just like President Trump can. I think he's one of the very few people that could combat President Trump's national audience and take some of that away and take it onto his spectrum. So I think it can be good, and I don't really think it's fair to blame him for the Hillary Clinton thing. I think she lost that campaign on her own.
Oh, absolutely,
And this
yes.
is a completely different situation, and I think if he gets behind the right Democrats, I think it'll be very crucial for them if they want to flip the House and the Senate. So I think Obama being on the campaign trail, while it is unusual, I think it's a smart move by Democrats and by Obama himself.
I'm going to jump in there just a little bit. I was reading Rasmussen Report's survey. It was 38% of U.S. voters say they are more likely to vote for a candidate who Obama campaigns for. 36% say they are less likely. And 24% say an Obama endorsement really has no impact for them. So we're not seeing from Democratic voters themselves saying that this is helping them at all.
See, going back to what Drew said about how it didn't really work for Hillary Clinton, I think that's because most people already had a preconceived notion of what they thought about her. But I think, well, like what Dakota said, given the right candidate and Obama endorsing him, I think that greatly increases the Democrats' chances. And like he said, the basic message right now is that this is not rock bottom for Democrats. It's not. All we have to do is get out and vote, and we could see a change in the political swing.
The part that confuses me is you saw President Obama go out and campaign for Hillary Clinton, who I believe is farther left than Obama.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the Democrats' angle here? Because him going out and endorsing, and he endorsed hard for Hillary Clinton. I mean, you can endorse someone and be, half on it. He was all in on Hillary Clinton. So is he going to be endorsing center-left Democrats, or is he going to be endorsing farther-left Democrats? Because I think right now there's a big split in the Democratic Party. You've seen with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in New York. She's a socialist, and she's a proud socialist. So that's way farther left than someone like Connor Lamb, who had success. So what's the angle here does anyone have an idea as far as Obama's angle working with the Democratic Party? Is he trying to steer one way or the other?
I don't think that's part of it right now, simply because we're pretty far out. Right now, it's an attempt to boost the 7 Democrats running in districts that Hillary Clinton won back in 2016. I think that's the main objective right now, is to get Democrats out in those specific districts and vote. Who knows? Further along, when we get closer to the actual elections, we might see him decide an angle, so to speak, on whether he wants farther left or not as far left. But that's not. I don't even think that's in his mind at all right now.
Okay.
And as I mentioned earlier, while it is strange for a president to be out there, I think he knows why he's out there. He has some kind of agenda, and he won't back candidates that he doesn't believe have a chance to win. And I think it'll be smart for him to back the right candidates. Don't back someone that's too far left in an area that's not going to vote for someone like that. He needs to study the candidates, and obviously I'm sure he knows the candidates and who they are and who he wants to back. And Obama's a smart man, so he'll know what to do, and he'll back candidates that are far left and they're in an area that is designed for the far left, or if they roll more towards the center, he'll back them. I think he knows what he's doing, and I think it's a good strategy by Democrats. Will it work? It remains to be seen. Possibly not, but I mean, they have to come out with everything they have, and bringing Obama on the campaign trail, it can't hurt them. I think it can only benefit.
Can I ask you guys a question real quick? Do you guys think that before the elections, President Obama will come out and endorse Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
Actually, that's tough. I thought you were going to go with something else there, but that's actually tough. I am honestly not sure.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to endorse someone that is that far
I don't think
left.
so either.
I think he's smarter than that. Obama, as I mentioned, he's a very smart man, and I think he's smarter than that.
Okay. I just want to get your opinions on that. There's just a question I came up with.
Yeah, I would definitely say no. But Democrats need to gain 23 seats in November to take control of the House, and he endorsed 81 Democrats actually running for state and federal offices back in August. So he's definitely out there, very present on the campaign trail. And of course, Trump is also out there as well for the Republicans. But when we come back, we will dive into Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings right here on the Waynesburg Effect.
There are little things that you can do to help you when you're driving a car, but the one thing that you shouldn't do when driving a car is texting and driving. In fact, at any given time throughout the day, approximately 660,000 drivers are attempting to use their phones while behind the wheel of an automobile. And 11 teens die every day as a result of texting while driving. According to the National Safety Council, 25% of all automobile crashes are related to cell phone use. Don't text and drive.
Rough day, huh? Hey, rough day, huh? Maybe this will make you feel better. I made some apple fritters. Welcome home.
Thank you. I really needed this today.
We're back on the Waynesburg Effect, and for our last topic, after 4 days of confirmation hearings, Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh's committee vote has been postponed. What's been going on?
So a lot has come out recently about Mr. Kavanaugh. The latest stuff that I've researched today is that there was information delaying the nomination, and it's supposedly a sex scandal. I know everyone's shocked with all these that have been in the news, but that's the latest. There's not much on it, so I don't have a whole lot of detail. But as of now, right now, they're saying that it could be a sex scandal. But a little bit of background on this specifically. The Republican Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh, they want him nominated. Democrats obviously don't. And the Democrats are using the same logic that Mitch McConnell used to delay Merrick Garland, and now Republicans are up in arms about it, and they've changed their stance on that because it's affecting their party. And I think that is incredibly frustrating, and it's mind-boggling to me that people do that people just can be real wishy-washy like that, especially with the type of guy that Kavanaugh is. I really don't think that he's that great of a dude, because he is very, very, very frustrating on a lot of different issues. What do you think, Dakota?
Well, there's a number of reports talking about even that he was for racial profiling post 9/11. Now, I'm not sure if those are completely true, but there are so many reports that come out that are just mind-blowing about Kavanaugh. And even the hearings themselves, there were some reports that Fred Gutenberg, whose daughter was killed in Stoneman Douglas shooting, attempted to shake Kavanaugh's hand, and supposedly Kavanaugh ignored it. Now, those reports were later denied by White House officials, but we know they're going to stick by their guy, so they're not going to say he outright ignored him. But if those are true, I mean, that's troubling. Now, I don't know if they are. I'm not going to say they are. But there's so many controversies that follow Kavanaugh, and then Kavanaugh himself caused some more controversy with women's rights groups, as he even called some birth control abortion-inducing drugs. So he's just maintaining that controversial stance, and it's troubling that Republicans are so adamant on him, and Democrats obviously don't want him, and Republicans were in the same boat before, but now they think it's disrespectful of Democrats. But really, I think it's going to happen continually. I mean, that's just how the political spectrum is now, and it's a shame, but he's controversial. Trump likes to go with controversial picks. We all know that. Even Republicans know that, and that's why they voted for him. So it's going to continue to happen.
Unfortunately, when you have a two-party system like we do, you're going to get that back and forth wishy-washy, people turning on what they said prior. That's nothing new, and unfortunately that's what happens almost all the time, when the other party takes control. There's definitely overreaction on both sides. The left was protesting the nomination before it was even announced. They had signs made up for, all 4 of the supposed finalists. They sent out emails with X's instead of the names, just to fill in, just in case it was, someone outside of that, what was thought to be the final 4. And on the right, a lot of people think that if Kavanaugh gets confirmed, that he'll, reverse Roe v. Wade, which is ludicrous, honestly. That's not going to happen with Kavanaugh. He's a gradualist. He's less likely to overturn older rulings as time progresses. And I don't think for the right and, for Trump supporters, I don't think Kavanaugh's necessarily a slam dunk that they think he is. He set the precedent that Obamacare was a tax that, Roberts used to defend it. So I don't think that, on either side he's as good or as bad as people are saying. The confirmation hearings were a circus. It actually reminds me of the scene from Moneyball. I don't know if you guys are familiar, where all the scouts are sitting around and they're just critiquing these high school baseball players on the length of his legs and the personality of his family or his girlfriend. I mean, it honestly is. It's turned into a circus on both sides. I think it's funny. Judge Kavanaugh's a textualist, and there's more evidence and more documents on him than any other judge.
I think. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think the overreaction that you mentioned is warranted because in 2009, Kavanaugh wrote that Congress might consider a law exempting a president while in office, which is ludicrous. It is completely preposterous that the president can be above the law, and that's ridiculous, especially now that Donald Trump's in office, because Donald Trump definitely thinks he's above the law, and I think that anything even considering that is just ridiculous.
I agree, but unfortunately, the overreaction is only happening on one side. Like I said, in a two-party system, when the other party gains control, all of a sudden the party in the minority decides that they're going to take the stances that the party now in the majority used to take. So while that reaction is completely warranted, it should be on both sides, because who knows what's going to happen in 2020 and who's going to be sitting in that presidency.
Could it be that most Republicans right now are, to put it lightly, pretty shady people?
I wouldn't say pretty shady people. I mean, that's basically Washington in general.
Fair.
My whole thing with the Kavanaugh confirmation is that this is the judicial branch of the United States government. This is supposed to be, the most nonpartisan of all of them. And yet, here we go again with another confirmation, and it has turned into mudslinging on either side. It really is not a good look for Washington. The biggest example I can pull out of this is Senator Cory Booker. I mean, made an absolute fool of himself by releasing what he called and what he, proudly said were classified emails of Kavanaugh's. He released them online, bragging, these are classified, and I'm breaking the rules. And it came out the next day that they were declassified that night, and he knew that. So I mean, it is individual politicians trying to turn themselves into superheroes to please their constituency and to please their side.
And Booker himself on that one called it his "I am Spartacus" reference, because he was trying to get people to stand behind him while he was supposedly breaking the law, even though they weren't confidential or classified emails. So both sides are guilty of this, and that's why earlier in the show I mentioned that's why I like someone like John McCain so much, because he didn't care what side of the spectrum. If he didn't agree with it, he didn't agree with it. He doesn't have to stick by his side, and I think that's what we're going to see in America for the time being moving forward, is they're going to stick by. If you're a Republican, you stick by Republicans. If you're a Democrat, you have to stick by a Democrat, no matter how crazy they are. And that's the state of America, and it's unfortunate, but that's the case that we're in today, and that's how it's going to be.
Well, gentlemen, we could probably talk about this topic all day. After all, there was four days of confirmation hearings. But when we come back, we're going to dive into some of our own personal commentaries right here on the Waynesburg Effect.
I didn't realize what a fine line it is between social drinking and a problem. I hadn't even noticed what was happening, and then he was gone. Hi, honey. He's gone.
We're back for our final segment here on the Waynesburg Effect and kind of going off of where we left off. Drew.
Yeah, so if you couldn't tell by the last segment, I really don't like the two-party system. I hit the campaign trail this summer for Dale Kearns. He's running for U.S. Senate as a Libertarian. He's running against Lou Barletta, the Republican, and Bob Casey, the Democrat. If you haven't heard me talk about this yet, I'm sorry. So Dale Kearns is a phenomenal candidate, would do an amazing job in the Senate. Unfortunately, the Libertarian Party in Pennsylvania and across the United States is vastly underfunded. I've worked for a couple Republican campaigns, and I can tell you that the Republican Party has so much more money than the Libertarian Party. If we really want to fix our government, then we need to really figure out our campaign finance laws so that parties like the Libertarian Party can get on the ballot, without having to collect 5,000 signatures across the state, which is absurd. We need to get libertarians and other parties on the ballot so that we can end the two-party system, finally. Dakota?
For me, I just want to let everyone know there was a mass shooting in California yesterday, and just pretty much nobody knows about it. 6 people were killed, including the suspect, and the gunman went on a 15-minute rampage. And the only reason I'm talking about this, obviously I mentioned no one knows about it, and that really shows the sad state of our country is in right now when it comes to gun violence. 5, 6 people, that's not news anymore. 10 to 15 years, that was breaking news all over TV. Now, no one will talk about it. It's just another day in America. It's considered another statistic, another number, and it shows the way that we view gun violence. And I'm not going to go onto a rant about gun control or anything like that, though I could. But I think we really need to, if we sit down and look how many people get killed by guns daily that we just don't know about, it's an alarming statistic that I think needs to be brought to a front in America so people understand the violence that guns bring. And yes, it can be people, but also guns do have an impact on these violent shootings, obviously. And I think it's something that most of America did not know there was a shooting yesterday, and I think that's a shame.
I think another thing that we need to talk about here is the opioid epidemic. Guns as well, but I think these are the 2 leading issues, is guns and opioids. And I'm sure by now we all know that Mac Miller has passed away, and we know that it's an overdose. And one of the headlines that I read was that he was one of 72,000 or whatever in the last however many years to die of drug overdose. And that's sad because he's just a statistic now. And I think that that's where we're at in this country now, is that we see someone dies of a drug overdose, they're just a number. And I think that's terrible. I think we should be passionate, we should be angry about, someone near and dear to the city of Pittsburgh passed away because of drugs. We should be angry about it. And I think that we need to stop the opioid epidemic in its tracks. And it needs to be stopped now. And just, Mac Miller was near and dear to the city of Pittsburgh.
He sure was. Another thing in the breaking news, Hurricane Florence, all these hurricanes coming at us. It really frustrates me how storms are reported in the news. They're calling this hurricane historic. They were saying it was going to hit as a Category 5. I'm not saying this is not going to be a horrible hurricane. It is. But it's currently about to hit, and it's a Category 2. That's a huge difference from a Category 5. Everyone's like, so many people are going to die. So many people are going to be without power for months and months and months. And you just report what you know, which is not a whole lot with a hurricane. You don't know what's going to happen with the hurricane. You cannot predict its path. They can try, but they've literally had 5 different paths this thing could actually take. What we know is it is going to be a hurricane when it hits land. It is going to cause a lot of damage. There's going to be a lot of wind and a lot of rain. And of course you need to evacuate. It is very good that they did the evacuations that they are. I'm not saying that, but people still stay. People are still there. I don't know why. To me, I can't, if something's coming at me, they're like, oh, we don't want to leave until it's a hurricane. No, I'm out. Once it's a tropical storm, I'm leaving. I'm going inland. But I just wish that, just report what we know. Don't scare everyone unnecessarily. We have enough, you're talking about this world is so horrible. We don't even know about a shooting in California. Don't unnecessarily scare us about the weather. Just report what we know. But that's going to wrap us up here today. Thanks for joining me, guys, and we'll see you next time right here on the Waynesburg Effect.
This has been a production of Waynesburg Community Television.